The question is, you seem to be very direct and willing to talk about topics that many spiritual students and even some spiritual gurus don't want to talk about. So I would like to ask you about the topic of true gurus and false gurus. Is that a concept you operate with? And if so, how would you distinguish between a true and false guru? As because I was involved with a movement where the guru claimed to have the truth, but I eventually came to see some inconsistencies and contradictions. I also know other seekers who have been involved with movements where the guru was claimed to be in a superior state of consciousness, yet abused people. So what is your take? Well, I think this is a very important question because it touches on a lot of different topics that we need to wrestle with in order to rise to the higher levels of the spiritual path. If you're new to the spiritual path, you hopefully won't be confronted with a guru who abuses you, so you don't really need to deal with the topic. But as you mature on the path, you can really benefit from at least considering the topic. So let's start with, as the question says, many spiritual students are reluctant to consider whether their guru is a true guru or a false guru. Why is that? Well, in my experience, which I certainly went through in my first spiritual movement, it's because most of us as spiritual people, we grow up as outsiders. We have questions, we sense we're not being told everything, but mainstream religion puts us down, scientific materialism puts us down, often our own family members put us down because they can't answer our questions. So we feel like outsiders. Then we come to a point where now we find a spiritual guru, a spiritual movement, we go into it, and all of a sudden we feel like, first of all, we've been redeemed, because there is more to know about life and the guru has that. But we also feel like we found a community of like-minded people. Some people say, I felt like I'd come home. I felt like this is where I belong. I felt like this is what I've always been longing for. So it feels good. And we are reluctant to lose that feeling. And if we came to see that our guru is a false guru, we would have to leave the movement, and then we would lose that feeling. We might even end up feeling worse than we did before, which is certainly what I went through after I left my first spiritual movement. So, and I've seen many other people go through this. The problem is there's kind of two things we can say about this. First of all, if your guru was a false guru, wouldn't you rather find out so you could move on and find a better guru? Or would you want to follow a false guru for the rest of your life? But the other thing that you can observe in people is that if they are following a false guru, they will notice there will be subtle signs. And this means that attention will build. So a typical scenario you see is that here's a person who finds a spiritual movement and sort of you give your trust to the guru. You trust that the guru is who he or she claims to be and is dedicated to helping you grow. So you can trust the guru. And as I said, this feels good, but then, so you have what I call a honeymoon period. Everything is just wonderful. But then after some time, what happens to many people is that now they started noticing things. They have questions, they have reservations. They might even see some things that are directly abusive. Sometimes it's obvious abuse, so people have to leave, but many times it's not really obvious what's going on. So gradually the pressure starts building. And this is like a steam engine. You have this boiler, you're lighting a fire under it, you're boiling water inside, and the steam creates pressure. But a steam engine has this release valve. So you can let off steam, because if you don't, the pressure is going to keep building until the boiler explodes. But when you're in a spiritual movement and you have reservations, but you refuse to acknowledge them, you're closing the escape valve. And that means the pressure can only keep building, and you see that in people. They manage to keep going maybe for several years, but suddenly something happens. Now they just can't ignore it anymore. And now there's a big explosion, and they see no other way than to leave. And you can see from people's descriptions of this, this can be very, very traumatic. It was traumatic for me when I left my first movement. And for some people, it's the trauma of their lifetime, because they felt they gave their trust to the guru, and he should have been, or she should have been, the one person they could trust, and that trust was betrayed. So that's why I'm saying the only way to really avoid this pressure building is to at least wrestle with a question. What is a true and false guru to you? What does it mean? How would you deal with this topic? And at least clarify your thinking on it. So let me at least give you, based on my own experience, what I have reached, how I look at this issue. And I think the first thing I would say here is that I have a lot of videos where I talk about the duality consciousness. And what I say is that in the duality consciousness, we define two polarities. And we apply value judgment. So we could say true is one dualistic polarity, false is another dualistic polarity, true is good, false is bad. A true guru is good, a false teacher is bad, false guru is bad. So in a sense you could say, is this completely dualistic? And is it something we should avoid, at least on the higher levels of the path? You can find non-dual teachers out there who no doubt would say to this whole concept, it's meaningless to distinguish between true and false gurus because any distinction is dualistic. And it doesn't really matter because there's no one here and your suffering is just part of the dream and you just need to awaken from the dream. So in other words, they would say we shouldn't even attempt to make a distinction between true and false gurus. And I have two problems with that. First of all, as I said, it ignores people's suffering. And it can really be an intense trauma. And you don't help people by saying your trauma is just part of the dream, you just need to awaken from the dream. Because when you have been traumatized, the only way out of it is to process it. And you can't process it if you don't look at it. And if you just say it's a dream, well, why would you look at it? So if you just say, if you ignore your trauma long enough, it's going to go away, that's just against everything that people's experiences and the entire psychological profession has come to experience. Trauma doesn't go away by ignoring it. So the other problem I have with this is that I actually think that the claim that we shouldn't make distinctions is dualistic, because it's creating another more subtle dualistic polarity. So you have one dualistic polarity is to say there's only one truth and it's ours. In other words, our guru is the only true guru and anyone who disagrees with him or says something different is a false guru. So that's one dualistic polarity, clear black and white distinction between true and false. But saying that we shouldn't distinguish because there really is no truth, there's nothing as real or unreal, that's just another dualistic polarity. So the question for me is this: can we can see that there are clearly distinctions that are dualistic. Our religion is the only true religion, our political philosophy is the only true philosophy, and scientific materialism is the only true worldview. So we can see in history how these black and white dualistic distinctions have created all kinds of conflicts. So obviously as spiritual people, we don't want to go into that. So we don't want to go into this simplistic black and white dualistic definition, true guru, false guru. We certainly don't want to say there can only be one true guru and all the others are false. So, but this doesn't mean we can't make a distinction. And in fact, we can't avoid making distinctions, and we shouldn't avoid making distinctions because the only way to grow on the spiritual path is to refine our ability to make distinctions that are not dualistic. So how do we do that? Well, I have a video where I talk about how the world was created. And you can watch that video if you're interested in the topic. I'm not going to give a long summary here. I'm just going to say we were created to be co-creators. And we were created to start out with a localized sense of self and gradually expand our sense of self. And we expand our sense of self by experimenting with our co-creative abilities. So here's how this works. You formulate a mental image in your mind, and you are projecting it out from your mind. You are projecting it on the basic energy that makes up the universe. And this energy acts kind of like a cosmic mirror. Whatever you are projecting into it, it will reflect back to you in the form of physical circumstances. And then when this reflection comes back to you, you make a distinction. You are saying, do I want more of this? Do I want more of the same? Or do I want more than this? Do I want something different? And if you want more of the same, you just keep projecting the same mental image into the cosmic mirror. But in the natural scenario, if you want more than this, you have to say, well, the only way I can get more back from the cosmic mirror is to project something different into it. But what am I projecting into it? Well, what I'm actually projecting into it is my sense of self. So the only way to get something more back is to transcend my current sense of self, rise to a higher sense of self. And that's the whole process of life. That's the whole process of co-creation. And it's also can be said to be the process of the spiritual path, even though there are some special considerations on earth. But nevertheless, this is really what growth is all about. Increasing your ability to make a distinction between what you want and what you don't want, who you are and who you aren't, thereby transcending your sense of self. Now, what I have also explained is that on a planet like Earth, which is an unnatural planet, we have two options for how we see ourselves. We can see ourselves as connected beings. We are connected to something outside ourselves. And we can see ourselves as separate beings. And when we see ourselves as separate beings, we are going into, we are using this duality consciousness to create a self-image, a sense of self as a separate being. And what I am explaining is that in this duality consciousness, we can create any image we can imagine, and then we elevate it to the status, this is not an image, this is how the world really is. So we are in a sense being like gods defining how the world should work. And this is entirely false. So when we create this dualistic polarity that this is true and this is false, it's not that what we say is true. It's actually false. Both what we say is true and what we say is false, it's out of touch with reality. So what does it mean that we are connected beings? What are we connected to? Well, I explained that we have a higher self in a higher realm, in the spiritual realm. But we are also connected to what I call the one mind. So what I explained in this video about how the world was created is that the creator who created our world of form knew that when it creates self-aware extensions of itself and gives them free will, we can become lost in form. We can, in other words, we can create a certain sense of self and we can think either this is the highest form of self we could create or this is the only form of self. This is who we really are and there's nothing we can do about it. So we can forget about the path of self-transcendence. So how to make sure that we can always get out of any sense of self we created, we can always get back to the path of self-transcendence. And what the Creator did was, first, before it created any form, any differentiation, it created a mind, the one mind that can't be divided. And then every form that was created, including our individual selves, was created out of that one mind. And this means that we can say that we are starting out with a certain sense of self. We don't, when we start out, we don't see ourselves as separate beings. We haven't gone into duality, but we see ourselves as localized beings. And then, but we have a sense we are connected to something. And by expanding our sense of connection, we are expanding our sense of connection to the one mind. And we can come to a stage where we begin to feel oneness with the one mind, and we realize that everything else is out of the one mind. All the other beings were also out of the one mind. That's essentially how we grow in consciousness. So we reach higher and higher levels of oneness. And this means that when you realize this, and when you have this intuitive sense of connection, you have a different way to distinguish that isn't dualistic. Because now you can say, what is out of the one mind is true. What is out of the separate mind, the duality consciousness, is false. Because separation isn't real. There is only the one mind, and everything is connected through that one mind, because everything came out of that one mind. And so this can now be applied to spiritual teachers. Because you can say that Generally, a spiritual teacher claims to have reached the highest level of consciousness than most people. That's why the teacher can be of value to you, because you feel that you're at a certain level of consciousness, but the teacher is at a higher level of consciousness, so he can help you grow. But what does it mean to be at a higher level of consciousness? It means you have reached a higher sense of oneness with the one mind. I'm not the kind of person who says that a spiritual teacher should be perfect or should have reached the ultimate level of consciousness, because if the teacher has reached a higher level of consciousness than you, then that teacher can help you come up higher. It may not be that the teacher can help you forever. You may need to, you go to a certain level with one teacher and you find another teacher, go to another level. That's a very common scenario out there. So what I'm basically saying is that we have a tendency when we find our first guru to kind of give our loyalty and trust to that guru. And we want to believe that this is the only guru we will ever need. And there are some gurus out there who will tell you this, that they are the only guru you will ever need. But really what we need to be loyal to is not an outer guru or an outer teaching. It's our own inner path. And your inner path is that you come to recognize the one mind in yourself. And if a guru has really reached a higher level of consciousness, the guru has also acknowledged the one mind inside himself or herself. And here's the deal. If you recognize the one mind in yourself, you don't need anything from other people. Because as you increase your sense of oneness with the one mind and with your higher self, you come to feel complete in yourself. You come to feel self-sufficient. You don't need to be admired by other people. You don't need to be looked up to. You don't need to be obeyed. You don't need to control other people. You don't need them to give you anything. So basically a guru who has reached a higher level of consciousness has acknowledged and started to unify with the one mind inside him or herself. And the guru also recognizes that the only way you are going to grow is that you come to unify with the one mind inside you. In other words, you can't unify with the one mind through the guru. The guru cannot make you come into oneness with the one mind in yourself or with the one mind in him. The guru can only say, listen, I have come to see the one mind in you, but that mind is also in you, so you can come to see it in yourself. And this essentially means that a guru who has come to this realization sees that his primary or her primary task is to make himself obsolete, to take you to a point where you no longer need the guru because you are now so united with the one mind in yourself that you can actually become self-sufficient on the path. And so a guru that has reached that level of realization will actually say, if that guru takes you to the point where you don't need the guru will say, I've done my job with that student. Now I focus on some other students that haven't reached that level yet. But the guru is never seeking to tie you to him or herself, to make you feel codependent on the guru, to make you feel you can't make progress without the guru, that you need something from the guru that you can't get from inside yourself. So to me, this would be a valid distinction to make. A true guru is seeking to make himself obsolete. A false guru is seeking to keep you tied to the guru and thereby actually prevent you from going to the level where you don't need the guru anymore. So this would certainly be one measure to apply there. The level of oneness with the one mind that the guru has attained. Now you could also, this isn't of course the only way to look at it, because you could be more general. You could say that the essence of the spiritual path is growth. And growth means essentially you recognize you are at a certain level of consciousness, but there are higher levels of consciousness possible, and you want to grow towards those levels. So you could also say, does a guru help me grow, or does a guru stop my growth or hinder my growth. And now we're into something that's a little more subtle to define. Because, well, let's take an example here. You can find many spiritual people out there, and you can actually find this idea floating around sort of in the collective consciousness of spiritual people, that there's a certain standard for how a guru should behave. There are many spiritual people who feel that the guru should talk very softly and slowly and be very measured and controlled. And he should say, Namaste, Namaste. So they have a standard. This is how a guru is supposed to behave. And they are projecting this image. But this image can often prevent people from growing because it can prevent them from discovering the one mind inside themselves. And so there are actually some gurus that it's not their task to live up to this image. It's their task to shatter this image, to challenge this image, and to take people beyond the image. So you can't necessarily say, and it's actually dangerous to say, a true guru lives up to my image of what it means to be a guru, and a false guru violates that image. Because it could very well be that your image is limiting your growth. And therefore, a true guru will challenge your image and will challenge you to come up higher. And let go of these images you have, not only what it means to be a guru, but also what it means to be a student, what it means to be a person on the spiritual path, and especially what it means to be a person who has attained some higher level of the spiritual path. So, you can actually have a guru who doesn't behave the way a standard guru behaves. And that's a true guru for you, because that guru can help you challenge your mental images. And while we're talking about this, let's talk about people being disappointed in a guru. Because I came to, when I was very young, I was probably in my teens, I had this period where I went through this. Why did I get disappointed? Because I had an expectation. So the way to avoid disappointment is to have no expectations. Essentially what a lot of spiritual gurus are saying, about living in the now and not projecting upon the future and not worrying about the past. But anyway, so it is true, and you can observe this. There are many, many people who come to a spiritual guru and they have certain expectations about what the guru is going to do for them. And you can especially see this in India, where you have this very old Guru Chila tradition in India. And many, many people in India believe that they can't make it on the path without the guru. They need the outer guru because he can do, he's in India, he can do something for them that it can't happen any other way. So the teacher can give them some kind of blessing or have them give them some kind of touch their third eye and transfer energy or transfer some kind of grace so that they are awakened, but this couldn't happen without them. And what have I just said? I've said that the one mind is in everyone. And Jesus actually said it. The kingdom of God is within you. And the Buddha said, everything is the Buddha nature, meaning the Buddha nature is in you. So how do you grow on the Buddhic path? By acknowledging the Buddha nature inside yourself, not in the guru. But it may help you to first acknowledge it in the guru if you then say, I can do what the guru did, and the guru can help me do it, but he can't do it for me. If you think that the guru has some kind of magic trick that he's going to make you see the one mind in yourself, then you have a, what should we call it? A dysfunctional, non-constructive expectation. The guru cannot make you grow, because growth can only come from within by you coming to see certain things and making certain decisions. And that means, as I said, the inner path of looking at yourself, looking at your own psychology. So you can basically say that when you talk about a spiritual path, there are two versions of the path. There's the outer path and the inner path. I talk about this in several of my videos. And the outer path promises you can make it to whatever the goal is defined as, enlightenment, awakening, whatever, without looking at yourself in your own psychology, without doing what Jesus said, looking at the beam in your own eye. The inner path says, no, the only way you can make progress is to look at yourself. Because as I said, what you're projecting into the cosmic mirror is your sense of self. And if you don't transcend your sense of self, you're going to keep getting the same thing back. So, so we can actually take a step now that might be disturbing to some people. I've certainly met people who got angry with me when I said this. It's fine to talk about false gurus. But if we want to be complete, we also need to talk about false students. And what do I mean with that? Well, if you have a person who comes to the guru and expects that, oh, I just need to surrender myself completely onto the guru, never think for myself, never question, and then the guru will do something magical to me, and then I'll be enlightened. This is a false student. First of all, you're expecting something that's impossible. But what you're also doing is you are abandoning your responsibility for your own path, for your own growth, for your own state of mind, for your own sense of self. And I met people who got angry with me when I said this, and I understand why they get angry. They get angry because they're afraid to take responsibility for themselves. And the reason why they're afraid is because either in this lifetime or in past lifetimes, they were exposed to severe trauma. This is what I talk about in my avatar videos, where I say that we came to Earth, we encountered the fallen beings, and we were traumatized. And ever since then, we've been trying to compensate for it. So I understand fully, and I'm not trying to criticize anybody here. I understand that there are people who are so, they still carry this trauma with them from past lives, and therefore they feel that if they were to look into their own psychology, they would be overwhelmed. I understand this. But I have also, in several of my videos, provided a way out of this state. And I explained that we have created these, as a result of the trauma, we created these subconscious selves. They are based on an illusion, but they also have a certain amount of energy, which could be anger energy or shame or guilt or fear. And so we can use spiritual tools to dissolve that energy so it doesn't pull on the conscious you. And we can step outside the self and see the illusion and let the self die. And once the self is dead, we have actually, or if there's several selves, we have overcome the trauma, the effect of the trauma. And this is an efficient method. It has worked for many people I know. It certainly has worked for myself like nothing else I've found on the spiritual path. So, but there are, of course, many other ways. Many spiritual techniques and tools are really aimed at this, helping us resolve this, so we come to a point where we can take responsibility for ourselves. And I acknowledge there are people that are not ready for this, and they can just ignore what I'm saying. But those who are ready for it, you need to step up and you need to say, do I have some expectations of the guru doing something for me that is keeping me from looking inside myself and discovering that I too have the one mind inside myself? And this ties in with the whole concept of idolizing a guru. You can see in many, many spiritual movements, it's a typical pattern. In fact, you see very few movements where it doesn't happen. That you have a guru, either he has made some claim about himself that he's reached some higher state, or he's allowing his followers to make that claim. And now you have this mutual admiration society that comes up, because the followers, they validate that the guru is special, and the guru validates the followers that they are special because they can see how special he is. So they are feeling very special. There's a funny movie called Pink Panther 2, where Steve Martin is the Pink Panther. He's not the Pink Panther. He's a detective. And there's a funny scene where they're in the Vatican because the Pope's ring has been stolen. And Steve Martin insists on dressing up like a Pope and reenacting what the Pope did before. So the Pope went out on the balcony in the evening and he was looking at the moon. So Steve Martin says, I go out on the balcony, I'm looking at the moon, feeling very spiritual. And it always stuck with me because this is what you see in a lot of spiritual movements. People are feeling very spiritual, very special because they have this guru. And the effect of this is that people are looking at the guru. And it may be that the guru actually has achieved some level of oneness with the one mind. But if you're looking and thinking that only the guru has achieved this, or only the guru can help you discover the one mind in yourself, then you're looking out. You're looking at the guru instead of looking inside yourself. And that is going to stop your growth. So I would say that if a guru encourages this sense that he's so special and he can do something for you, that's a big question mark there. Okay, so I guess we should at least just talk about abuse. We can say if a person claims to be a guru and claims that he or she can do something for people, then people should be able to trust that the guru is genuine about making this claim. And if it turns out that the guru isn't genuine, that's actually a form of abuse. It's abusing people's trust. You can also talk about physical abuse. You know, if a guru pressures the members into have sex with a guru, or if the people are pressured into giving all of their life savings to the organization so the organization can buy the guru a Rolls Royce for every day of the year, that's kind of a physical abuse. Then there's emotional abuse where people are made to feel that they're afraid to question the guru, or they feel that, well, however the actual situation is, they would feel like they would go to hell or make severe karma or miss their ascension if they question the guru. Or they should feel guilty or ashamed for questioning the guru or for leaving. So in a sense, it's an emotional abuse if there's an organizational culture that says you can't leave. Then there's mental abuse where, you know, there are some of these gurus out there, and I've studied them a little bit because I wanted to increase my ability to discern. So you can have a guru who makes a statement, and let's say it's written. I've had examples of this where I read a paragraph, and then I read it again, and I read it a third time. And I'm sitting there saying, I don't grasp what is being said here. What is the guru trying to say with this paragraph? I just don't grasp it. And yes, of course, it could be that I'm at a lower level of consciousness, but I've been on the path for a while. I've studied a lot of teachings. Quite frankly, I'm not an idiot. If I can read a teaching 3 or 4 times and I still don't understand what's being said, then I'm beginning to feel that there's something here that isn't quite straightforward and honest. Because what I've noticed is there are some gurus out there, they have this ability to use words and to speak with authority. And what they often do is they actually express themselves in very imprecise ways. This means, for one thing, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what the guru is trying to say. So you can't really ever say he said something wrong. But the other thing is, this gives a lot of room for interpretation, which means that people can interpret it any way they want. So what you often see in these kind of with these kind of gurus is that they attract followers to them who they can have 2 things. They can have very fixed opinions about the spiritual path and they want them validated. And the guru isn't directly validating people's beliefs, but people interpret the guru's words so that it seems like he's validating their beliefs, their preconceived opinions. The other thing is that people have this need to feel special. And this means that the more difficult it is to understand the guru, the more these people can feel special because they think they understand the guru. Whether they do or not, you know, but they think they do, And they see these people who don't understand the guru, so they feel more sophisticated than others. So what I'm getting at is that there are some people, some gurus out there, they are actually creating this doubt in people's minds. You doubt your ability to grasp a spiritual teaching, to know what's real and unreal, true and false, because you should just follow the guru. You should just believe the guru and not question him. And that's a form of mental abuse. And then there's, at the identity level, there can be various teachings that are identity level abuse if they present you, like for example, Christianity, you are a sinner. You are a sinner by nature. That's abuse at the identity level. But there can also be gurus who say you are inherently imperfect, you can never become self-sufficient, you will always need the guru. That's also a form of mental level abuse because you are not an inadequate or flawed being. There can also be gurus who say there's something wrong with you and I'm the only one who can help you compensate for this. So these are kinds of abuse. Okay, so now I've given various criteria, and so you can kind of take those, see what appeals to you, and apply this to gurus you have either followed or you have come across, that you have studied out there. Or you can go out and look at various gurus based on these criteria. But if we really want to be complete about this topic, we have to actually take it up a notch. And we can't talk about false gurus without talking about fallen beings. And I have, again, in my How the World Was Created video and in several of the other videos in that series, I talk about fallen beings. Also in the Avatar series, I talk about fallen beings. And to just give a very brief summary, a fallen being is a being who has rebelled against the process of growth, self-transcendence. The fallen being has gone into the illusion of separation, and it has used the duality consciousness to build what it thinks is a very, very sophisticated sense of self. And some of these fallen beings, they literally feel their self is so sophisticated that not only do they know better than all other people on earth, but they know better than God. They know better than God how the world should work. And they are essentially trying to prove God wrong by getting people to follow them or by getting people to destroy themselves by misusing their free will. I explained this more, so I won't go into it. Because the important point here is this. The fallen beings have denied the one mind in themselves, and they want all people on earth to do the same. The last thing they want is someone who not only acknowledges the one mind in himself, but demonstrates it and speaks about it. You see Jesus. He came at the beginning of the Piscean age to demonstrate the path to personal Christhood, union with the one mind. What did the fallen beings do? They killed him. But what did they do next? After Jesus was dead, or his body was dead, they killed his example. Jesus was meant to be an example saying, I have reached a higher level of union with the one mind, you can do the same. The kingdom of God is within you, and you and you and you, all of us. So when the fallen beings took over the Christian religion, created the Catholic Church, they totally denied this. They totally denied that Jesus was an example. No, he was an exception because he was the only Son of God. Even as a child, I looked at this and I said, well, where did I come from? Where did all the rest of us come from? Aren't we sons and daughters of God? Well, of course we are. But the fallen beings, they have used mainstream religion, they have used political ideologies like Marxism, or they have used scientific materialism to deny that there is a path that we can follow to oneness with the one mind. They want to do everything they can to obliterate this entire idea of a path. But the fallen beings know that they can't make everybody believe in this. Like Abraham Lincoln said, you can't fool all of the people all of the time. So they know there's a certain group of spiritual people that will want a path, they will want to find a path and follow a path. So the fallen beings have this motto, if you can't beat them, join them. So what the fallen beings have done is they have set up people in physical embodiment as false gurus. And I call them false gurus because the entire intention behind them is to mislead you. In other words, these gurus might be talking about a spiritual path, but instead of leading you towards greater oneness with the one mind inside yourself, they're pulling you out of that. They're pulling you outside yourself. They're pulling you into a blind alley, or they're even taking you down. So this is something at the higher levels of the path. You really need to wrestle with this. It certainly is something I have wrestled with over the years, and it's not something you can just snap your fingers and get it. But you can certainly start recognizing this pattern. You can start seeing it out there. As I said, there are these gurus, as just one example, who are very, very clever at using words. And they're very clever at coming up with these statements that make you doubt yourself. They make you doubt that you can know inside yourself what's true because you have access to the one mind in yourself. And therefore, when you connect to the one mind, it becomes a frame of reference. You can evaluate everything based on that. They're very good at making you doubt that, making you think that you can't know within yourself. You need to accept what they are saying. You need to follow them without questioning it. And they can set up this whole thing. I mean, you have it even in the Indian guru tradition. You have this concept of there's the guru and the chela. And chela actually means slave. So the idea is that the guru has an ashram. You come into the ashram and you surrender yourself entirely to the guru and become a slave. You do everything he says. Now, here's the tricky part about this. I'm not saying this is a completely false system, because you have the concept of the ego. I talk about these subconscious selves. And the effect of the ego is that you have a mental image in your mind, and it's a false image. So in order to grow on the path, you have to let go of it. So the idea is that by surrendering yourself entirely onto the guru, he can shatter that image, if he's a true guru. But if he's a false guru, what happens? You become a total slave of a false guru, and he's not going to take you to greater oneness with the one mind inside yourself. He's going to take you further into separation. And often a false guru will do this by making the followers feel special. You project, or the guru projects. The guru is very good at projecting. He's special. In many cases, they won't necessarily say it, but they will drop these hints, and then people can interpret this. This guru is very special. And then the guru will make people feel those who obey me, those who follow me without questioning me, they are also very special. And in a sense, the fewer people follow the guru, the more special people can feel. And that's why I say it's this mutual admiration society. And this is what the fallen beings are very, very good at creating. And they're also very good at creating this sense that if you understand at least some of what the guru is saying, you are very, very sophisticated. Because look at all these people who don't understand it. But it could be that the reason people don't understand it is there is nothing to understand because it doesn't make sense. But you think it's the emperor's new clothes again. The people project that it's so special. And there is this in spiritual movements, like you see, of course, many other places, but I call it the process of unnatural selection. You have a guru makes a claim. Some people believe it without questioning. And then there are those who either can't believe the claim, or after a time they come to question it. And these people who question the guru, they don't see any way to stay in the movement. They feel they have to leave. So they select themselves out. And that means the people who are left, they're the people who they're either willing to follow the guru, or they don't really have any questions about the guru. So it creates this filtering effect that everybody who's there are validating each other. And so they create this, mental image, this collective mental image that they are so sophisticated. And why would a true guru do that? Ask yourself this. Because here's the simple reasoning here. I've said that every form, including every individual being, is created out of the one mind. What does that mean? If we are all created out of the one mind, how can I be more special than you? If the one mind is in me and the one mind is in you, how can I be more special than you? So what you really see is that you can only feel you're more special than other people when you're in this illusion of separation and you use the duality consciousness to create certain criteria that say, because I'm following this guru, I am special compared to those who are not following this guru. When you start unifying with the one mind, you see that, well, you see that you're not special, but the whole need to feel you're special just falls away. Because why do you need to compare yourself to others? Why do you need to feel that you're special compared to others when you feel complete and whole in yourself? There comes this point where you have a certain unity with the one mind where all you're focused on is helping other people, inspiring other people. You're not doing it for your own sake. You're not doing it to get something out of it for yourself, your separate self. And this is what I've talked about. When we go into separation, we feel incomplete. So we create all these games to compensate. And you can, and there are certainly examples of this out there, you can set yourself up as a spiritual guru as a compensation game, where you feel incomplete in yourself, but if you can get other people to admire you and worship you and follow you, then you can feel you have compensated for this inferiority you have in yourself. But of course, the real essence of the path is to look at yourself and say, if I feel inferior, it's because I have some subconscious selves that make me feel that way. So let me look at myself instead of trying to get other people to help me justify not looking at myself, which is essentially what you're doing. So I talk about this in some of my avatar videos, where when we have this trauma, we create these subconscious selves, and now we feel incomplete, we feel we're in pain, and we are essentially trying to change the world and other people in order to overcome the feeling in ourselves. But this is never going to work. The only way to overcome the feeling is to see that the feeling resides in a separate self. And you dissolve the energy, you dissolve the illusion, you separate yourself from yourself, you just let it die. And then the conscious you is free to pursue wonders with your higher self, and that's what makes you feel complete and whole. And when you reach that, it's like you are not trying to do something to get something for yourself, you're just helping other people. And that's another measure you could apply to a true teacher, is just helping other people. But it's not trying to get something from them, from that effort. And okay, so what can we say here? We can say that, yes, there are definitely gurus that I would call false gurus, because they are fallen beings in embodiment. Now, I've explained there are 4 levels of the material world. So there's the physical level, you are in physical embodiment. There's the emotional level, the mental level, and the identity level. And there are fallen beings in all 4 levels. So in many cases, you can say that here's a guru in embodiment. He's a fallen being. He has set himself up as a guru. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he has a malicious intent. He might just actually really believe in what he's doing, or he might just have this need to be admired by, validated by other people, and to compensate. But because he is a fallen being, he's open to the influence of these fallen beings in the higher levels, often in the mental or the identity realm. And so he's basically a puppet on a string. And they are using him to sabotage people walking the path, prevent people from walking the path. And the guru might not be aware of this, and he might not have a malicious intent for doing this, at least not that he's aware of. So there are these gurus, you can look at them and you can say, no, yeah, but he seems to be genuine. He's really just wanting to help people. But if you start looking closer, you see that there's something there, because the effect, Jesus actually said 2,000 years ago, he was actually talking about fallen beings. He just wasn't using that. He was calling them the wolves in sheep's clothing. In other words, they appear just like other human beings, but they are really wolves that want to devour you. So he was saying, on their fruit ye shall know them. So one measure is, you can say, here's a person who seems genuine, seems to have the best of intentions, but the effect of it is that people become codependent on the guru and they're not really growing. So these are some measures, but really, if you want to say, how do you tell a fallen guru from a true guru? And the only way to really do it, I mean, you can apply the outer criteria that can help you, but the only way to really do it is to have an intuitive experience where you suddenly see it. You suddenly, oh, this is a false guru. But what is that based on? It's not really based on what you could say arguments defined in the mind. It's actually based on reading vibration, an intuitive reading of a person's vibration, their energy field. And I think many spiritual people, we have some ability to do this. I mean, I can see I had it from I was a child, and many people I know, they've also had it. You're very sensitive. And so you think back and you can say, did you ever, you were about to enter a building and you had a sense, no, I don't want to go in there. Or you enter the building and you think, oh, it's nice in here. And that was because you could sense one building had a lower vibration, one building had a higher vibration. Did you ever meet a person and you sense, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I just want to walk away from that person. Or I met people also who are sensitive. They can pick up a book and you can sense, that's not for me. You may not necessarily say it's a false book, but you can say, that's not for me. And another book, oh yeah, I'm going to look at this. And so you can actually come to this point where you have this intuitive sense, there's something wrong with that guru. However you can formulate it in your mind. I'll give you an example. I found my first spiritual movement when I was 18. And in that movement, it was already quite a big movement. So what happens as a movement gets bigger, there's no access to the guru because he's up there and he's protected from people always pulling on their attention. So if a movement gets big enough, you usually don't meet the guru directly in person. So in this movement, we watched videos, and they were recorded, many years before I found the movement. So the guru was much younger then, and when I looked at these videos, I could sense that he had a certain radiation of energy, and I at the time I could only see it as spiritual light, and he had a certain charisma, and so I thought, okay, he's probably a genuine guru, but I always sensed there was something, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. So then I took this teacher training course, 4 months. And in the end of this course, we watched this very recent video with a guru. And he was addressing the United Nations. He wasn't there physically, but they recorded the video and sent it to them. And he was basically blaming the United Nations that if only they had accepted and promoted his form of meditation, we could have solved all of these problems in the world. And from an outer perspective, you could say he was just an angry and frustrated old man that was blaming the United Nations. But as I was sitting there watching the video, all of a sudden my mind felt completely still. And the way I would explain it today is I went into a neutral state of mind. Instead of looking at the video through my outer mind and my filter of how this movement should be and how the guru should be, I was just neutral. And then all of a sudden from inside of myself came these words, he's got no light left. And I just saw he was an empty shell. There was no spiritual light or vibration coming from him. And it shocked me. It really, really shocked me. And my outer mind tried to explain it away for probably 6 months or more. But from the moment I had that realization, I was out of there. I was out of that movement. It just took me a while before my outer mind could accept it and find a reason for it. And so the reason why I say that I came to distrust my intuition was that I felt my intuition had told me to go in there, and now my intuition had shown me that he was a false guru, or at least he didn't have light, and how my intuition had fooled me. So what I want to say here is that you might look at this video, you might look at these criteria I've given, and you might look at a guru you followed and say, well, maybe he was a false guru. And how could I follow a false guru? And that's the reaction that I realized later. That was an unbalanced, immature reaction. You don't need to react that way. Because there is a reason why you found that guru and why you followed that guru. I have in one of my breakthrough videos talked about you have a life plan or a divine plan. So when you're a spiritual person, before you come into embodiment, you are sitting there, you have a broader perspective than you have when you're in embodiment looking out through the body or the follower body. So you're planning your next lifetime and you're saying, I want to learn certain lessons. I want to increase my ability to discern what's of the one mind, what's not of the one mind. But I know that when I come down into embodiment, it's so dense that I might actually forget this. So I'm going to put myself in a situation where I sort of force myself to deal with this issue. It could be a hang-up in your psychology. It could just be that you want to increase your discernment. And so it was if you have found a guru and followed that guru, it was in your divine plan to follow that guru. But here's the deal. When I found my first spiritual movement, I felt my intuition told me to go in there. And that must be because this is a true movement and a true guru. Otherwise, why would my intuition tell me to do this? But that was my outer mind reasoning. That wasn't my intuition that told me this. The intuition actually told me to go in there because I needed that experience. It's part of my path. It's part of my increasing my discernment and increasing my ability to help other people. So it's the same for you. Why did you go in there? Because it was part of your divine plan. So why feel bad about it? Why feel ashamed? Why feel guilty? Why feel you were fooled? Why feel you were stupid? All of these feelings, they come from separate selves. So what you can do is you can say, okay, let me just be brutally honest here. Look at my reaction. Because I can use my reaction to expose the separate self that the reaction comes from. And it's most likely part of what I wanted to achieve by being in that movement was I wanted to expose that separate self so I can let go of it and be free of it. Because if you have a separate self that makes you feel ashamed, the moment you get rid of that self, you transcend that self, let it die, and transform the energy, you're not feeling ashamed anymore. I can think back and I can see how in the first several years after this, I was really hurting. I was really in pain. And now I can look back at the situation. Where's the pain? I mean, there's no pain. It was just something that happened on my path. I don't need to feel ashamed or stupid. It was just part of my growth process. And I have used it constructively. I have learned the lesson. I've looked at myself and I have grown from it. So how can there be any bad feelings left when you come to that point? So in a sense, you could say that true teachers, false teachers. You can come to the realization that a guru is a false guru. But it doesn't mean that the guru wasn't helpful to you, that the guru didn't help you grow. Because by encountering that guru and first believing in the guru and then coming to see the limitations of the guru, you have grown. It's that interchange of believing in something and seeing there's something more. That's how we grow. What's wrong with it? What is wrong with it? Now, I'm not trying to say here that you should flip to the other extreme like some of the non-dualists do. Well, that means, why are we talking about false gurus? He was okay. He helped you grow. So why say it was wrong what he did? But again, you can make a distinction. You can say, well, this person might have helped me grow, but he was still abusive. He still abused me. He abused my trust. And that isn't right. It may have helped me grow, but it still wasn't right. And you have a right to express that, maybe warn other people, or at least help them also turn their experience with a false guru into a growth experience. Okay. I'm sure there's more that could be said about that because, of course, people have many issues, many traumas with gurus. But then if you feel there's something I haven't covered, you can ask me a question and I'll see if I have anything to say about it. But I want to I know it's a long discourse already, but there's another topic I feel we should cover to sort of round it off. I grew up in a time before the internet, and which means I'm very old. And before there was an internet, it was much more difficult to find a guru or a spiritual movement. You can't, if you've grown up with the internet, you can't even imagine how it was back then, how difficult it was to find a spiritual movement. Because there were only books, and spiritual books weren't in the bookstores, and they weren't in the public libraries either, at least not in Denmark where I grew up. And today it's changed. You can find many books that have spiritual books, many libraries that have, but of course you also have the internet. But just imagine that wasn't there. So what I'm saying is that when I first found the spiritual path, which was in 1976, most people I saw around me, they found an Eastern teaching and an Eastern guru. And myself included. My first book was Paramahansa Yogananda. My first movement was a meditation movement. So many people have gone. Their path has been: you grow up in an unspiritual environment, you find an Eastern guru. And many people I've known, they have had this desire to go to India to meet the guru physically. And as I said, I love Yogananda. I loved his book. And I benefited from the meditation movement as well. But I never had a desire to go to India. I just didn't have it. And when I thought about this, because I saw it was so atypical compared to many people I met, I thought, why is that? Why don't you have this? And the conclusion I came to, whether it's right or not, but the conclusion I came to was, I've spent many past lifetimes in India. Been there, done that. And so there came a point where I started thinking, this was after I'd left my first meditation movement there, I started thinking, why did I choose to be born in the West in this lifetime? Wouldn't it make sense that I did this so I could find a spiritual teaching that appeals more to the Western world and the Western mindset, the more modern mindset? So that was one thought I had. And then I looked at Yogananda's book, and I looked at the guru of the meditation movement, and I came to see that they had a certain cultural overlay from India. And you can take Yogananda's book, for example. He talks about his spiritual paths and spiritual gurus, but he also talks about prominent Indian scientists and politicians. Because part of what he wants to do with his book, and of course it was written a long time ago, was to promote India. So you can see that in a sense there was a certain cultural overlay that India feels inferior to the West, or the West looks at India as inferior, and he wanted to compensate for that. And so all I'm saying is, I'm not trying to condemn this, I'm just saying I observed this. I saw that, and the conclusion I came to was that a guru who's in physical embodiment will always have, or is very likely to have, a certain cultural overlay and a certain outer personality. And I just came to a point where I started, I don't know if I could really have formulated this, but I started longing for a spiritual teacher who didn't have that. Who didn't have a cultural overlay, who didn't have a personal overlay, but was more universal, was free of anything on earth. In other words, I really was longing for a teacher who isn't on earth, who isn't in physical embodiment. And there's a very old saying on the spiritual path that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And after I had come to this clarity in my mind, that's when I heard about Ascended Masters. And this was back in the early 80s, and I really went into my second spiritual movement in 1984. So ever since then, the focus of my spiritual path has been the Ascended Masters. If you say, who's your guru? I can only say it's the Ascended Masters. Because I have been striving to increase my sense of connection with my higher self and with the Ascended Masters. And it has been enormously helpful for me to have the whole concept of Ascended Masters, to have the teachings from the Ascended Masters that we had in my second spiritual movement, and the practices, the invoking light from the Masters, the decrees and invocations. So this has been enormously helpful for me. I can only say that it took my path to an entirely different level, and it has continued ever since. I'm no longer in my second spiritual movement. Now I have since 2002, I have worked directly with the Masters to bring forth teachings that you can find in my books and on my websites. So that has taken my past to another level. But what I really want to talk about here is that I think there comes a point for many spiritual seekers, I won't say all, but many spiritual seekers where in order to go to a higher level, you really need to contact the Ascended Masters. I'm not saying you need to do it through me, but ideally, you need to come to a point where you have developed your own personal relationship with the Ascended Masters. Because the way I see it, they are the ultimate gurus for humankind. Because they're in the spiritual realm right above Earth. So when we start contacting the spiritual realm, the first beings we are going to meet are the Ascended Masters. And I know there are spiritual gurus out there who will deny the existence of Ascended Masters. They will say, oh, it's just a concept. It's just an idea. There are also those who will say, we don't need Ascended Masters. We can go directly to God. I remember many years ago, I was contacted by somebody who said he had directly contact with God, so why would he need Ascended Masters? They were just false. They were just trying to tie us. But that just isn't my experience. And, how to explain this? Well, just my own experience. I can only really share my own experience. What started happening to me after I had heard about Ascended Masters and started practicing the invocation, studying the teachings, and I especially started listening to these dictations that were given by the Masters through the Guru of my second spiritual movement. And I started having these inner experiences where I felt like I contacted the Ascended Masters. I touched the Master's presence and consciousness. And this has just been so precious and so valuable to me that nothing else compares. Nothing I've ever encountered on the spiritual path compares to this. And it didn't come through anything outer. In my second spiritual movement, the leader, who was also taking these dictations from the Master, she was considered to be the guru. But I never saw myself as her personal Chela or student, because I was always focused on the Masters. For me, she was the tool to help me get in contact with the Masters. But I didn't need to go through her. I could go directly to the Masters. And so she was just helping me establish, as I said, that inner connection to the one mind inside myself. That's how I used her, and that's how I saw it. And so, so to me, this is like the ultimate guru-student relationship, at least the way I see it. Now, I want to be clear here. I am not saying that all spiritual students should eventually recognize Ascended Masters. I'm not trying to say that those who don't recognize Ascended Masters, oh, they are just not at my level. They just haven't come up high enough. That's not what I'm saying. Because we all have an individual path. And certainly, I don't have the image. This was there in my second spiritual movement. They thought that everybody should eventually recognize Ascended Masters, and the whole world, even the political system, should recognize that if we just get directions from the Ascended Master, we can solve all our problems. Just like the first movement, if everybody meditates, we can solve all our problems. One solution to all problems. I don't buy into that. I never really bought into it. But so what I'm saying is that the world will grow when the collective consciousness is raised. And that means there needs to be many different sources of input that raises the collective consciousness. And some of them will be very universal. It won't be tied to a particular person, guru, a particular movement, a particular teaching, including the Ascended Master teachings. So many of the changes that are happening happen with these universal things like mindfulness or therapy or psychology. Many people are going into therapy and raising their awareness. So really, the most universal aspect of changing the planet is to help people deal with psychology. And that needs to happen in many different ways. So that's why, again, there's plenty of room for many spiritual gurus, many organizations, many teachings. All I'm saying is that I think that as you walk the spiritual path, you become less and less sectarian. In other words, you become more universal, and you realize that your guru is not the only true guru. Your organization is not the one that's going to save the world. Many are needed. And I think that could, as that awareness spreads, it will mean that there will emerge this, as I see it, this group of spiritual teachers, spiritual organizations, spiritual students that will acknowledge each other and acknowledge that each of us is a facet in a diamond. And it's the totality of the diamond that's really going to have an impact. So we can avoid this, fighting each other. Anyway, I'm digressing. I just wanted to say, I guess, it's again this teaching. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. That is actually a good statement to contemplate, because in my second spiritual movement, the way people interpreted it was, we have the highest spiritual teaching on the planet coming directly from the Ascended Masters. So the fact that we have recognized the teaching means we are the most advanced spiritual students on the planet. And that felt good for a while when I saw this. But later I've come to see that there's probably 50 other movements out there where they feel exactly the same thing. Maybe even more than 50. We have the highest spiritual teaching, so we have the highest guru, so we are the most advanced. And so when you come to see that, you just say, do I really need this? Can't I just let it go? But what I wanted to say was that you can actually twist that statement around a little bit and say, what does it mean the student is ready? That means the student is ready to recognize the teacher. So at any moment, at any level, I've talked about these levels, the 144 levels of consciousness, at any level of consciousness, you're ready to recognize a certain teacher. And so that means that whatever was your first teacher was a teacher that reflected the level of consciousness you had at the time. But the purpose of finding that teacher was, of course, that you would transcend that level, come up to higher levels. And so it may be that the teacher you could recognize at that point is not the only teacher or the ultimate teacher you need. It might be that that teacher is meant to take you up to a certain level. Then you need to be open, follow your intuition, your inner path, instead of being loyal to the outer teacher. You find the next teacher that takes you up to a higher level. And that's how the path progresses. So when you come to this point, you can really say, well, a consequence of this attempt to distinguish between true and false teachers could also be that you set up a scale for higher and lower teachers. You could say, well, there are clearly false teachers. They are in a special category. But there is a category, and as I've said, there's more than one true teacher. It's more than one valid teacher. But then the analytical comparative mind can start saying, but that means that there are teachers for different levels of consciousness. So there are teachers that are for a lower level of consciousness, but our teachers for the highest level of consciousness. So now you're still in this treadmill of comparing and evaluating. And you can you can circumvent it by saying, but the teacher you recognize at your present level of consciousness is the highest teacher for you right now, because he can take you to the next level up. And then the teacher you can recognize at that higher level, he couldn't help you now. He couldn't help you at this level. So you could say, the teacher I recognize right now, it's always the ultimate teacher. It was like I once talked to a used car salesman who says, this car is the best car I have on the lot. I say that to everybody. And of course you can say it's true. If you're always selling the best one, you're selling everybody the best car you have. But anyway, the best teacher is the one that can help you take the next step on your path. And so higher and lower, what does it matter? And to me, what has happened is that as I have overcome these separate selves that are so bent on comparison, the whole comparison has just faded away. What does it matter? Higher or lower? It just fades away. It just becomes uninteresting, because you're always looking for the next illusion you need to overcome. And what is the teacher that can help you with that? The Ascended Masters actually have a saying that if the guru be an ant, heed him. And that's also an important concept because there is a clear tendency among spiritual people. They are looking for the highest teacher. So then they find a guru who makes this claim. And now they go into this movement and there's this collective consciousness there. We have the highest teacher. He's so special because of this or that or the next thing. And so this means that people go into the state of mind where, oh yeah, I am willing to listen to Guruji when he talks to me, but I'm not willing to listen to anybody who's below him. Because I'm so advanced that he's the only one who's above me in consciousness. So he's the only one who can tell me something. I'm not willing to listen to those who are below me. And that's a very unhealthy attitude. And that's why if the guru be an ant, if you consider the guru to be some humble person who's below you, if that person says something that you need to see in yourself, then heed it. And I look back at my path, and certainly I benefited from sitting there listening to a guru who had a higher level of consciousness than me. But I have benefited just as much from encountering people who somehow told me something that helped me see something in myself. It might be that person was angry with me, but it said, and it might have given me a whole spiel that was just anger spouting off, But there might have been one thing in there, Kim, you do this all the time. And it made me pause and say, oh, maybe there's something here I need to look at. So if you maintain that attitude that you are willing to listen to a guru, but you're not just willing to listen to the guru who's up there, you're willing to listen to anybody, and you're really come to a point where you're first of all listening to the guru inside yourself, which is your higher self, but also the Ascended Masters. And then you can get these, I have, for many, many years now, way over 20 years, I have had this with the Masters, If I sense there's something I don't see, I ask them. I ask them for help. I say, Mother Mary, help me see this. Jesus, help me see this. Gautama, Buddha, help me see this. Saint Germain, help me see this. Master Moore, help me see this. And sometimes I get an immediate answer. But other times there goes some time where I have to process it. I have to maybe look at it from different angles. And then suddenly, there it is. Now it breaks through and now I see it. And if you can establish that, I think you will find that that's really the most valuable thing for you on your spiritual path, the inner guru. The outer guru can help you, certainly, both the one that you think is above you and the one who thinks is below you. But it's really the inner guru that's most helpful because, in essence, what the outer guru can do for you is trigger the inner aha experience. But it's actually easier for the inner guru to trigger that experience because the guru is already in there. So it's not that the outer guru is false. It's just that if the outer guru takes you away from the inner guru, that I would consider false. A good outer guru realizes that he can't really do anything for you. He can only help you make contact with that inner guru, the one mind in yourself, your own higher self, or the Ascended Masters, so that you get it from within. It's again this, an aware guru realizes that his or her primary task for you is to make himself obsolete, so you don't need the guru anymore. And I think that's what's coming here. Again, if you have specific questions, then submit them to me and I will see if I have anything valuable to say about it. So thank you for listening.